Hi, Claire and James here. Just before we get stuck into this week's episode, we wanted to let you know the exciting news that the Midlife Reset audit is now live. This is a first of its kind personalised diagnostic tool designed for midlifers by midlifers.
In just 3 minutes, the audit will help you pinpoint what's really holding you back from living your healthiest, happiest midlife, and most importantly, provide tailored strategies on how to take back control. Midlife doesn't have to be a time of uncertainty. It can be an era of growth, discovery, and well-being. So to go ahead and take the audit, go to themidlifementors.com/audit.
As life progresses, it's easy to fall into a routine with your partner, simply going through the motions of daily life, handling responsibilities and sharing the same space. But sharing space doesn't necessarily mean you're sharing a connection.
By midlife, we can begin mistaking proximity for intimacy, believing that just being physically present is enough to maintain a strong relationship. However, true intimacy requires much more than simply being near each other. In this episode, we dive into proximity versus intimacy, talk about our own experience, and as ever, give you tips that you can action to start making positive changes to your relationship. Hi, I'm James Davis.
And I'm Claire Davis.
We're the Midlife Mentors, here to lift the lid on how to achieve health and happiness.
The balanced, no-nonsense way.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Midlife Mentors with me, James.
And me, Claire. And also our little Pomeranian, Lola, who's sitting next to us and she's panting.
If you hear frantic panting in the background, it's not me.
Not James.
It's Lola.
It does seem quite a little bit familiar.
Oh, does it now, Claire?
Oh dear. Well, it kind of leads on to what we're talking about today, doesn't it?
It does. So I did a post last week on proximity versus intimacy and how we can confuse the two and how that impacts relationships, and it seemed to really resonate with people. So we thought we'd talk about that today and dive in. But before we get into all that relationship gubbins, I haven't heard that phrase for ages. What have we been up to?
Well, I went away. I was very, very blessed that I could take myself away to Devon and do kind of like a self-guided retreat for it was like 9 to 10 days, and people are like, oh my goodness, how did you spend that much time on your own? And, you know, did you speak to anyone? Was there a community or anything? And I didn't have any of that. I was basically in a self-catering kind of little cottage type thing. And I just had myself, my thoughts, all of that kind of stuff, and no tech. I switched off all tech. So I had no social media, no WhatsApp, no nothing. And I just had books, journaling. That was it. And it was absolutely incredible. People that know me, I think actually people that know me really, really well know that I love my own space and love my own time. But people that don't, that necessarily just see me on social media and how and chatty I am, people are like, I can't imagine Claire going and not being around people for 10 days. But I just love it. I absolutely loved it. I had so many amazing revelations, so much healing that was very, very needed. And I'm just very grateful that James held the fort for me. And it's just an amazing human being that, yeah, he's like, okay, that's what she needs to do. That's part of her personality. She needs to go off and do that kind of thing and to really support me. So thank you.
Yeah, and then I came down to join you, didn't I? We had a little bit of time down in Devon, which was lovely.
In Exmouth, which was lovely.
We walked over 14 kilometres one day, just kind of like bimbling down the beach, around town. It was really lovely. Yeah,
there's a lot to be said for being by the beach, actually, and having a slower pace of life. Kind of came back to London. I was like, oh, it was quite overwhelming to the senses. But so that's kind of what we've been up to in the last couple of weeks. I've been off grid. And then obviously we're getting ready for, I hate to say it, but kind
September.
Of like autumn, really. You know, the kids are going back to school. We've had our summer holidays. Some might still be on it. But we've had our summer holidays. We might have overindulged. We might be thinking, oh my goodness, I've had some space and some time. I've had holidays. Now I just feel really bleh about going back into my job, my career. Might be asking ourselves some questions around that, wanting to have greater life balance, manage their stress levels, all that kind of stuff going into autumn. So if you are looking for a reset, particularly a midlife reset, we're going to be doing an intake, a cohort of the midlife reset in September. So if you want to know when that date is, we haven't actually organised a date yet, but it will be sometime in September. Jump on our email list if you're not already on there. You can go to themidlifementors.com and join our email list. You'll be the first to know once we open up the doors to that cohort. I imagine it'll be busy and super popular because we already know lots of people that we spoke to during the summer are like, I'm going to get the summer out of the way.
Yeah.
Going to get my holidays out of the way, overindulgence, all that kind of stuff. We do know that happens in the summer, but kind of want to set that or hit that reset button. So looking forward to...
I'm looking forward to getting that up and running.
It'd be good. It'd be really, really good. So as I said, just make sure you're on our mailing list so you're the first people to hear about it. So let's dive in now. James, I know this is something that really came through for you. It was a beautiful post to read. I saw it on Facebook and I was like, oh my goodness. I feel very blessed to, I suppose, like have someone in my life that is very open to discussing this stuff. And I suppose being vulnerable himself to talk about this kind of intimacy versus proximity and actually how we've grown in this area ourselves in probably like the last 6 to 12 months.
You know, I was really spurred because I know when I speak to male clients that I work with, I think, well, and female clients as well, I think this becomes a real sticking point in a number of midlife relationships. So let's understand what proximity means, actually being physically close to someone, right? So, you know, you're sharing a house, you're living together, you share a bed, you eat meals together. And I think sometimes we confuse that with intimacy. So intimacy is a deeper thing. It's about that emotional closeness, about that vulnerability, truly understanding and supporting each other on a deeper level. And I think the problem is that our lives can take over. You know, we're juggling careers, children, personal goals, responsibilities and routines. And that can lead to a gradual drift in emotional connection that can go unnoticed. And then this gap gets wider and wider. And I think like one partner or both partners can then mistake that proximity. It gives the illusion of intimacy, but it's not really intimacy. You know, you end up, you know, just sitting on the sofa at the end of the day, kind of exchanging a few words and then maybe scrolling, watching TV, but you're not actually having that connection that's so important. And my observation, not stereotype, was I think men are less likely to notice this than women. I think it becomes an issue with men. I think men will think that as long as they're proximal to their partner, they think that's kind of okay and it's doing the job. I think women are much more likely to pick up on the lack of emotional connection and be willing to do something about it. So guys, really time to step up. And I know something I've had to take on board myself personally, because I'll be honest, it's an easy trap to fall into, right? It's kind of like that slippery slope of taking your relationship for granted and taking the other person for granted, that you're in this comfortable space together and you're seeing each other like all the time. So you're mistaking that for intimacy. You're like, oh yeah, it's fine, we're intimate. But actually you're not taking the time to really connect, really have those deeper conversations and be vulnerable about how you're feeling and what's going on for you. So I thought it was really important to kind of explore this on the podcast. It did seem to resonate so much on the post. And then also talk about, you know, I've worked on this myself. We've worked on it together, but we've also gone to couples therapy as well. And not because there's anything wrong in our relationship. It's, you know, we're big believers in just continuing to grow, continuing to want to better yourself. I mean, like, okay, the relationship deserves investment as well. And this is something else I'd say. You know, in a relationship, we can make the mistake of thinking it's me and the other person. But actually, there is a third part, which is the relationship itself. And that needs energy and care and investment. So we've been going to couples therapy. It's been really transformational because you have a third party in the room that can help you see things from a different perspective, smooth out the bumps. And you get so many takeaways for it. And yeah, it's enriched our relationship so much and made it so much deeper. So I'd recommend that. But I don't know if you wanted to add anything, Claire, before we get on, because we always want to give tips. We're going to give tips on how to strengthen your intimacy, how to overcome this problem of proximity versus intimacy.
Yeah, I'm just sitting here like grinning from ear to ear, really, because I am very, very blessed that James saying about men not necessarily being open to this, not even recognising it. I mean, this is why actually more women at midlife file for divorce than men do, actually. That's a statistic that I've seen. And I think it is because there was a myriad of reasons. I think us women do go through a real transformation, men do too. But at midlife, we're going through all those hormonal changes. That can be very, very difficult, very, very challenging. But what I've seen time and time again is once they go through that transformation or during it, there's a real leveling out. You know, their boundaries get reset, our values get reset. We almost take back our power. It's almost like a time where we become very, very empowered and we start to realise what we do want to put up with and what we don't want to put up with. So I think that's a similarity that I see across the board with midlife women that are going through perimenopause, menopause, coming out the other side. And men tend to bury their heads in the sand a little bit more emotionally. They're not able to connect with their emotions so well. They find it very difficult to be vulnerable. So I'm grinning from ear to ear, really, because I am very, very blessed that I have a man that is open to it. In fact, it was James that we discussed it, but it was James that actually did the research and found ourselves the most incredible couples therapist. And the reason that we did that, like James said, it wasn't that there was anything, it was not like we were at breaking point, not at all. But we noticed there were behaviours that we were both displaying with each other that we couldn't quite work out why it was happening. It has been a massive pressure on us to have met each other and started working together almost immediately. We had a couple of months where we didn't work together. We had those couple of months there where James was flying backwards and forwards from Ibiza and I was flying backwards and forwards from London to go and see him. Other than that, I moved over to Ibiza very, very quickly and launched into his life, basically. I was very blessed again that James trusted me to work in his retreats business. But we worked together straight away. And so the entity of our career, our entity of our business over the years completely took over. And so we lost that relationship part and the investment and the prioritization of that relationship part. And even just the booking of that first therapy session, there was such a sense of peace, actually, and relief that we were both saying, you know what? Stuff work right now. We're investing, we invest back into the business financially, physically, mentally, emotionally, all the time. We're actually going to say, no, you know what? We need to invest the money in our marriage, in our relationship. And even booking, before we'd even gone and seen this incredible woman, there was that sense of, oh, wow, that's what it feels like to put a stake in the ground and say, both of us believe that it's important for us to work through this so that we can grow stronger. We both love each other very, very, very much and knew that there was some stuff that needed to be unpicked that we couldn't do on our own. It's very hard, very difficult to do that on your own. And we needed a third party. And like James said, it has been life-changing. It has been utterly, utterly life-changing. I've noticed so many things about myself. I know James would say exactly the same. And that whole intimacy versus proximity, of course, proximity wise, we're on top of each other, not in a sexual way, like literally on top of each other, working day in, day out, day in, day out. But that intimacy, we're not talking about like physically here, we're talking about spiritually, emotionally, intimate. We had just very much lost that connection, and it's so strong between us, but we'd lost it. So I think that's why, I'm presuming that's why this was so easy for James to write such a beautiful post, because he's been through it himself. And yeah, like the response was amazing.
No, thanks for sharing that. Yeah, it was a very kind of personal thing. And I thought this might help other people. So I know that it is an easy trap to fall into, right? So in terms of tips to bring you forward, I think the first thing you have to do is be honest with yourself and have a look at your relationship and go, have I fallen into this? Is it that your partner gets home, you're like, how was your day? And you're not really listening to the answer. Maybe your partner doesn't even really give you, just goes, yeah, it was all right. And there's no actual like depth of conversation there. And then you're sitting there separately. So I think the first thing is like, be honest, have a look at your relationship. Is it lacking that deep connection, that intimacy? Is it just proximity? Then how do you strengthen it from there? Well, I'd say the first thing is like make sure you're prioritizing quality time over quantity. And I really want to stress this point, right? Because again, this is the thing with proximity, there's a time-bound element. We might think, oh, but I'm spending hours with my partner while we watch TV and look after the kids. Well, yeah, great, but that's proximity. It's not about connection. And this is the thing. Connection can be a short space of time. It might be just sitting and looking into each other's eyes for 5 minutes and really having that deep conversation about how was your day? I really want to hear it. How are you feeling? This is how I'm feeling. Because that is more powerful than hours just sat doing distracting stuff. So that's the first thing, quality over quantity.
And I'd say on that, like a little tip from kind of like a coaching background really, is if the person says like, this is how I'm feeling, so this is my day, this is how it made me feel, and ask those questions. People want to be asked questions. Your partner wants to feel like you are interested in their life, right? So ask questions and listen. Don't ask a question. And this is sometimes where we all go wrong, right? We'll ask a question and then we're off thinking about what we want to say, what we want to ask next, but actually use your listening skills. And people find that quite difficult to do. And to show that you're listening, reflect back to them what they've said. It's a trick to really build intimacy and connection. So they'll say, this is how I'm feeling. You say, okay, this is what I'm hearing is that you have had this kind of day and this is how you're feeling. Just that tiny little thing. And like James said, looking into each other's eyes, the windows to the soul. How often have you even looked in your partner's eyes for a long period of time over the last week? Yeah. Month, like no one's looking in each other's eyes anymore. So that's, I just wanted to add that piece in.
Yeah, which is kind of that second point about being present when you have these conversations. The next thing is like, be prepared to be vulnerable, right? Be emotionally vulnerable. Like intimacy is built on trust. So talk about how you're feeling. Talk about your fears. It's not weakness. It's actually strength to talk about things. And then actually you'll find that the connection gets stronger between you as you share these. And you might suddenly understand aspects of your partner's behavior that have puzzled you before. You might find you've got shared fears and that brings you closer. Again, it's just having the courage to do it.
I'm coming up with loads more here. Sorry.
All right, here we go.
Sorry. I'd also, as a complete segue on this one as well, the present thing, absolutely make sure that your devices are away, that you're not trying to have this conversation while Netflix is on in the background, where the kids are screaming. Just try and find a time where you can put all those distractions away. One of the things I was going to say is don't assume. When we've been together for a long time, we can assume so many things about our partner. And we assume what they're thinking. We assume what they're feeling. We make so many positive and negative assumptions when we've been in a relationship for a long time. But I would say be really careful with that. Try not to project your own shit onto, your own trauma, your own shit that you've got going on. Projecting that onto your partner is a really, really common thing. Look at your reaction. Look at what's going on for you. Why am I reacting to my partner in this way? And please try not to assume everything. Sit down and ask them. And I know that takes it takes vulnerability, which is James is has already kind of spoken about. That takes vulnerability to say, look, I'm not going to assume how you're feeling. I would really, really like to know. I'm genuinely interested. And vulnerability, this is how I'm feeling as well.
Great point there. That's another thing to do that's actually like on the fun end of the spectrum is like to engage in shit.
All fun.
It's all
no,
fun.
I'm joking. It's not.
You know what I mean?
Relationships are
hard. Be hard work. But to engage in shared activities. So and I'm going to say here, like break the mold, right? This isn't like what you normally do. Like do something different. Go for a walk together. Go to a museum together. Go to the theatre. Just do something different that's a shared activity that you can enjoy together and talk about and appreciate together.
And one of the other things is to express appreciation and affection. We're constantly, again, telling our partners what we're not happy with or what, not even just about them, but like moaning and complaining, being negative about the life that we do have with them, the things that they might be doing wrong or not making you feel a certain way. Listen, this is the hardest thing to understand, is that we are responsible for our own emotions and how we feel. One of the hardest things we can ever understand is our partner is not responsible for our happiness. Now, I'm not saying if they're making you miserable and they're, I hate to kind of talk about this because it kind of brings the energy down, but, any emotional abuse, physical abuse, all of that kind of stuff is not okay. Obviously, at that point, we're like, you're not, but you need to be able to take responsibility for how you are feeling and not always expect, and we do this, all of us as human beings do this, we expect other people to make us feel a certain way about ourselves. So, rather than pointing out how they're not making you feel great in this way, showing them also appreciation and expressing gratitude for the good parts. Because it's easy to focus on the bad, but it's a lot harder to sit there and go, okay, what are the positive aspects of my partner? What do I love about this human being? What do I love about their soul? What do I love about how they look? Whatever it is, and express that to them.
Love that one. My final one is don't be afraid to seek help. And maybe I'm actually going to make that stronger. Actively seek it out, right? And I think there's still a bit of a stigma attached to couples therapy, and that it's a signal oh, something's wrong if I go to therapy. Well, no, think of it this way, if you're a tennis player and you want to be better at tennis, you go to a coach to learn how to improve your game. The same for any skill in life. Why not upskill your relationship skills as well? It's been really transformational for us, incredibly helpful. So I thoroughly recommend, don't be afraid to reach out for support and help.
I just want to say as well, relationships as human beings, we're supposed to have relationships with each other. We're not supposed to live in isolation. But our relationships can and do teach us the most about ourselves. They are there as lessons, basically, that we need. Some of those lessons in people come and go. There are seasons for different people in our lives. But I feel very, very blessed. I keep saying this over and over again, sound like a broken record. But I have, over the last 8.5 years with James, I have healed so many parts of myself that would have gone unhealed had James not have challenged those. So relationships, they're bloody hard. Really, really, yes, they can be really lovely and great. But actually, once we accept and surrender to the fact that they are also there to teach us about ourselves and heal those parts of ourselves, we are triggered in relationships. I was having this conversation with a friend earlier on today. When we're single, we can do a lot of work on ourselves. I hate that phrase. We can do a lot of work on ourselves, right? We can get ready for those romantic relationships in a whole as way as possible, right? But when you're actually in them, that's when the work, I believe, really frigging starts.
Yeah.
That's when you are challenged all the time, because you've got someone reflecting back at you. A lot of the time you're looking at your partner, pointing out the things or noticing things you don't like about them. It's actually because you're noticing them about yourself that you don't like. It's that whole projection thing. And then what do? You're either going to carry on blaming that other person and things might fall apart, or you can take the opportunity, and it is such a beautiful opportunity, to start learning about yourself. Why am I so triggered by this? Why do I find this so difficult? What's that kind of inner child, that little girl in me feeling right now? How is that being expressed to my partner? What are my expectations of my partner that I should be able and want to find in myself? And how can I support my partner and, bring the best out in my partner? Because we all want to do that, right? I think we fall in love and we want the best for our partner. But as the years go by, sometimes that gets eroded. But we want to get back to that place of being really supportive and encouraging and see that person shine and thrive. So it all comes through relationship, really. And so if you need, like James said, if you need support and you need help to unravel that in a safe space, I can't recommend that third person therapy enough. But yeah,
and I'd say here's a final thing on this. When you commit to working on a relationship, you are in effect also working on yourself, and then you'll find that spills into other areas of your life. You'll start showing up differently in other areas of your life as well.
100%. So I hope that's...
Have you found that useful, interesting?
Yeah.
Some tips there that you can apply. Maybe it will spark a conversation with your other half. We'd love to know how you found it. Drop us an email, team@themidlifementors.com. Please do share it if you found it useful. Let's spread the word, spread the love. Give us a little 5-star rating. That's always helpful. Even if you write us a little review, that's even better.
Yes.
And we can't wait to speak to you next time.
Yeah, and just remember to look out for your email for the next round cohort of the Midlife Reset. And if you're not on the list, go to themidlifementors.com and get yourself signed up to our email list, and you'll be the first to hear about it. And yeah, like James said, hope you found that helpful, and we're sending you lots of love. Bye.
Yeah.
You've been listening to the Midlife Mentors with Claire and James Davis.
We'd love to hear from you. So drop us a line at info@themidlifementors.com with any questions or topic suggestions.
And make sure you join us on our Facebook page and YouTube channel. You can find us under the Midlife Mentors.
Yeah. What? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode. And don't forget to take the Midlife Reset audit now to receive personalised insights into what's holding you back from living your healthiest, happiest midlife. So go ahead and take the audit now at themidlifementors.com/audit.